Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. If you're ready to take on your next paying clients, I have good news. My free 4 Basics of Client Attraction and How to Stand Out class is live at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. In the class, you're going to learn the top 2 traits I recommend for most coaches and entrepreneurs if they really want to turn this into a career. You're going to learn how you can build demand for your services and stop getting crickets on your posts. You're going to learn the sales roadmap I used to improve my sales conversion rate and help my clients do the same. And you're going to learn so much more. So go to haileyrowe.com/client-attraction and get your copy of the class today. Hey everyone, I'm here today with James Ashton, and he is with a company called Coach Financing. We're going to put a link below after this interview and with the show notes. But James, why don't you share a little bit about what Coach Financing even is, how you got into that, and who is the real James Ashton?
Sure. So Coach Financing is a fintech platform, and we facilitate loans for coaches. Any high ticket items, we look at coaching. We look at the financing for those coaching programs, and we have several options. We have what we call D2C or direct to consumer. We also have direct to market, and I'll explain what they both mean. And then we also have a 100% financing option for the coaches that are doing over $1 million or more in sales per year. And that's quite a interesting program, but we're all about, cash flowing your business. So it's worth having a conversation with us so that we can help you get more deals over the line and help your customers and get everyone's services. And the thing I like most about the coaching industry is the nobility of it. Like, we're all out there trying to help people. So if we can help coaches help people, then we're doing the right thing.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking most people will be interested in hearing, which is how can I, as a coach, so if there's a coach listening who deals with the financial objection from people that says, I really want to do your coaching. I really could see it, how it could help me grow my health or my relationships or my business or whatever it is. But affordability is the problem. How does Coach Financing help with that? And what could that look like if they were using your platform?
Sure. So I think the best question to ask is, and this may sound a little bit weird, but is how much are you short? And what I mean by that is how much are you short in funds in affording my particular coaching program? Because that gives you an indication of, have they actually got any funds to put towards it? And it also gives you the ability to probably make it easier to get finance for them. That if you're, say, selling a $10,000 ticket, then if they have $5,000, they can put that $5,000 towards the program of their own cash and get started with you. And then we can help you finance the remaining balance. Now, quite a lot of the times on the platforms, we see people apply and they may get offered more than what they've actually applied for. In some cases, they get less, and they'll have to make up the difference. But ultimately, it comes down to how much are you short is a really good question to ask so that you can understand where they are. And I allude that to sort of like when you buy a house, usually the bank wants you to put in like a 20% deposit. And I call that hurt money. I was a mortgage broker I was actually a mortgage lender back in Australia, where I'm from, for Australia's largest bank at the time. And we always wanted 20% deposit because that means that they were actually committed to that purchase, that they'd saved their hard-earned cash and they were going to put that money towards them. And I feel the same way about the coaching programs. If you want to do a great coaching program, you've got some money to put towards it, then let's see what money that is. And then that way they're really invested in your program and they tend to cancel less and everything like that. So that's what I always say is, how much are you short?
Nice. That's a great question, because it's really problem solving with the client instead of saying, you should be able to figure it out, or giving like some kind of canned response. I think it's a good thing to always ask a question to see how you can, be solutions oriented with the client. And what's cool is your company gives almost like a loan to the the customer, and the customer pays you back, right? And you pay, is that how it works? You pay the coach and then the customer pays you on a longer time span, or how does that work?
Cool. So this is where the technology, or the D to M and the D to C comes in. So direct to consumer, or D to C, is where we have on the back end of our platform multiple lenders who are willing to lend in the coaching space. Coaching finance is actually seen as very high risk because there's nothing actually tangible that they can take a lien over or anything like that. Like if you're buying a car or a house, they generally take a bill of sale over the car or a mortgage over the house. A coaching program, very hard to take any security because it's an actual intangible asset. So in this case, we've found the lenders that want to play in this space. And what happens is under the D2C platform, which means direct to consumer, the money is actually applied for through our platform. And the way it works is they will enter a certain amount of information, name, address, income, social security number, and then that sends it out to our whole list of lenders. And then those lenders come back with different offers. And then the customer gets to choose which lender they want to go with. And then under that, they finish the loan with the lender and fulfill all those requirements. And then they get the money paid into their bank account. And this is, again, another advantage of how much are you short, because you've already got a deposit, they're committed, and you're just going to collect the rest of the money via ACH or credit card. A lot of people like to pay by credit card because they want to get the points and things like that. So that's the process on that. Under our direct to merchant agreements, that is where the coach, and a lot of times, is actually underwritten themselves. So there's a little bit of qualifying criteria around that. And in that case, the customer applies pretty much the same way. And if the loan is funded, then that actually gets paid directly into the coach's account. So that's the differentiation.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. So if somebody is a coach and they are trying to manage their income and their expenses, which as a startup, a lot of times in the beginning, you have a lot of startup costs, and maybe during the first couple months, you're actually in a not abundant flow of cash where your expenses are higher than your income. What tips can you give to coaches who are maybe in that stage? I know you have something, I believe, called the 7 key cash drivers. So tell us a little more about that.
So the 7 key cash drivers relate to basically any business, and coaching is no different. So this is something that I always used to go through when I was a business manager in the bank. I would try and best understand each of the businesses that I had in my portfolio of what their 7 key cash drivers are and how they affect their cash flow. So the 7, to basically quickly name them, the first one is sales growth. The second one is your gross margin percentage. The third one is your expenses percentage. The fourth one is your debtor days. Fifth is creditor days. Sixth is stock days. And the seventh one is your capital expenditure. Now, the stock days, unless you might be living a little bit in the past and you've got massive big binders of coaching material and you have a lot of money tied up in that, generally probably wouldn't apply. So the first good news I've got is there's 6 key cash drivers for a coaching business. So although sales growth is a good thing, too fast of sales growth can be a bad thing because it actually eats up the cash that you've got in your business. So I'll try and give you a quick example. Say if you and I decided to do a side hustle and we went off and we went down and we got a contract to clean the local branch of Chase Bank or Wells Fargo or something like that. And we did such a great job that the national manager happened to be in the area at the time, and he saw that this was the best and cleanest branch he's ever seen. And he goes, I want this cleaning crew to clean every single branch in the whole country. So now we've got a sales growth problem because we now have to buy possibly, I think there's about 4,700 branches worldwide for Chase, for a countrywide for Chase. So we'd have to buy 4,700 mop buckets, 4,700 mops, probably a van and everything like that. So we've got this massive explosion of need. So that sales growth is a little bit too high. But maybe if they said, maybe you can just clean the other ones in Chicago or Houston or wherever you're based, that's a little bit easier. So too fast of sales can eat up a lot of cash depending on what the resources are. Now, the beauty of coaching is it's a fairly low resource type business and it's got pretty high margins. It's really a lot of the coaches themselves, it's their personal knowledge and they're putting it out. So having those high margins really helps. And that's where you've got to make sure that your pricing for your coaching program is the right. And I know you did a podcast on this fairly recently with, I think it was Evan. So that's something that, you need to really research and understand. How do I do that? Do I work out how many actual hours have I put into developing the program? What do I actually need to earn? If I sell this many coaching programs, is this going to meet my personal cash flow options and obligations? And basically reverse engineer it right from there. And there's a lot of different resources, and that's one of the things that I'm going to do an article or maybe another podcast on, is how to actually price your coaching program, because it's a very, very important topic. But making sure that those margins are right, that you've built it in. You don't want to price yourself out of the market, but on the same token, you want to get as much bang for buck out of your coaching program as you can. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, pricing is such a tricky thing for coaches. They think, oh, I need to, make sure people can afford it, but then I also want to be able to make a living here and not have this be like my side hustle. And a lot of coaches are just charging single session to single session instead of having a package, or they don't even know what a signature program is, and they're learning, they usually come to me having this desire to create a signature package and learn more about what that is. So how would you help coaches know how much they should charge for their service and find like a balance between, what their customers can pay and also what it makes sense for the actual offer?
Sure. So one method would be look at how long you've actually taken to develop your coaching program. And then on the same token, you need to look at, what is my hourly rate worth? Like, do I need to earn $100 an hour or in the week? Say, base it on a 40-hour work week and say, all right, my personal obligations or my personal needs or the business needs, if you might have a VA or some other staff that are doing it, what do I need in order to earn for that? And then basically that's the minimum charge that you want to do, but then you also put a margin on it. Now, the beauty of coaching also is you can segment it. So you can start off with a low ticket item and say, all right, I'm going to give 20% of my full program for this amount of money. And then as they graduate, then you can do the add-ons. And a lot of coaches I see do have those different price tickets so that they get the entry level, get people's feet wet a little bit, prove themselves out that they're really adding a lot of value to that particular business. And then they keep going from there. And I've seen coaches basically, especially in the medical space, charge up to like $140,000 for their program.
Wow. Dang. Okay. Yeah. And actually, what's a really good exercise, because as entrepreneurs, we don't really pay attention to this as much, is calculating what is your hourly rate. So taking how many hours you work per week, dividing it by how much, either you can decide your profit hour per rate or your revenue hour per rate. But that's been really useful for me to see, because then I know, like, is something worth outsourcing if it costs less than my hourly rate? Yes or no, right? So giving yourself some criteria for deciding both your price and deciding, if something makes sense to outsource and things like that is important. Now, how do we know? Because sometimes people say they can't afford something, and really it's more so an objection about something else. So how do you recommend balancing, ethical selling, diving deeper into what's truly true here, and also, incorporating coach finance? What's that delicate balance look like?
Sure. As I said, the best question to ask is, how much are you short? Because that also can throw people a little bit, because they're not probably expecting the question. And they can, usually, and this is a technique that I learned from collecting money, because in managing my portfolio, I had to lend the money, but then I also had a watch list that I had to collect any bad debts and things like that. And that was one of the questions I asked. So, well, you owe us $1,000 for this repayment. How much are you short? And they weren't sort of thinking, and they go, oh, I've got 300. You go, okay, well, I'll have that 300 now, and let's work on a plan to get the other 700 and catch you up. And that's the same concept of this. So asking that question can help them. And then I will say from the outside, we're dealing with the FICO system, or the FICO score system in America. Not everyone is going to get approved on your coaching program. But the fact that you've taken that large deposit, as big as you can get it, then if you decide that you want to do your own back office multi-pay, then you can then work out exactly how they're short and whether that suits you from a cash flow point of view. And it all really comes down to budgeting. Every business should have some sort of budget and a forecast, and you have your variance table to say, well, am I meeting what I want to do and everything like that? And if you're exceeding it, that's fantastic. But as I said before, don't grow too fast, because you can eat up too much time or spread yourself too thin, and then the quality of your coaching could drop. So it's always a delicate balance. But having the numbers written down, having a spreadsheet, and we are more also the way we like to differentiate ourselves is we're not just a fintech platform, we're a service organization. And if our customers are successful, we're successful. So if anyone ever wants to give me a call and talk through budgeting, I have an accounting degree. I've been in banking for many, many years. I've seen it all. And it really comes down to having the numbers and crunching the numbers is really key, and trying to make sure that you are, if you ever look at the end of my actual email signature sign off, I have down there a quote that says, whatever is measured improves. So you need to be measuring where you want to be, where you want to go, and if you are getting there, and how do you change behaviors to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And what if somebody is doing your program and, getting financing and things like that, and maybe missed payments, or have you ever dealt with that? What happens then? Okay.
So under the direct to consumer products, the agreement is between the lending bank and the consumer. We and the coach are just simply the introducing parties. The bank takes on the risk of that consumer based on their own credit criteria, and it doesn't affect anything with the coach. So if the person stops paying, that's the bank's problem. It's not the coach's problem. Under the direct to merchant type facilities, they're a little bit more complicated, because we are doing a very specialist introduction and the actual money is coming to the coach. So depending on which of the programs that we have that you are on, there may be what we call some out of recourse payments or a recourse period. So in order for the coach to be relieved of any chargeback opportunities that the lender might come back and charge back any funds advanced, then they might have to make X amount of payments. And that's all in the agreements between that particular lender on that particular program. But that's something very important to work through. And quite often ACH is the best way to collect that payment, because there's less chance of people challenging credit card payments and things like that.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So I have a question for you, because this is from a marketing standpoint. A lot of people who I work with do fancy things with their clients, like maybe it's functional medicine, or maybe it is some kind of complex thing that most people, you wouldn't outwardly market. It's more so like when they get into the program, it helps the person solve the problem, and it's more so a tool that they're giving in their program. But you have a business that could be complex to people, and it could be hard to explain, and or people could, anything with financing, a lot of times people's eyes glaze over. So how do you at Coach Financing, how have you guys been able to make it simple, get your message out there? I would love to hear from a standpoint, like how you've been able to market something and educate consumers on your product.
It's all a training issue. It comes down to training and coaching. It's communicating, telling them where we can break it down and put it as simply as possible for each particular program, but also educating the customers. So one of the things that we see quite often, especially in this high interest rate environment, because we're in the highest interest rates we've had this century. So we've seen funding rates go from a minimum of like 5.99, and the lowest one I've seen recently is probably around about the 12% mark. A lot of them are over 20%, and then that can cause customers to sort of freeze up and go, I don't want to pay that sort of money. But what you've got to look at it is it's a cash flow payment again, and it's not necessarily the repayment or more the interest rate. It's actually the repayment. So I've actually written an article on how to deal with repayments in a high interest rate environment. And you can do just really simple things like, if your cash flow is every 2 weeks, then make your loan repayment every 2 weeks. I'm not talking about if you've got a $400 per month repayment that make $400 every 2 weeks. If you can do that, fantastic. But I'm saying breaking it out by doing $200 in the first week and $200 in the second week, so that you cover the $400 for the month. but just that exercise, because interest is generally charged on a daily basis and then debited to the account at the end of the month, that can have a profound effect. And then if you can add, say, if it is a $200 payment, if you can add 10% to it, like 220, that can maybe take even a year off the loan term. And that way you can actually reduce your effective interest rate. So it's really all about education. We are constantly publishing on our website different tips and everything like that. And again, the offer's out there if anyone wants to have a chat about it. I'm happy to give that consultation over the phone to anyone who's looking at doing some financing or just wants to talk about cash flow in general.
Nice. Yeah, that's a very awesome offer. And we'll put that in the show notes at haileyrowe.com/blogs. And what about when it comes to where you're going next with your business and how you're getting the word out? I would love to know. Tell us a little more about your own marketing journey with your team and such.
So we do a lot of Facebook advertising and Google advertising. We have quite a good big budget that we spend every month on that. And that's always a dilemma because you see ad costs go up and down, up and down. You go, well, why is that? There's sort of no rhyme or reason. So we're trying to get as many people on what we call our demo, so we can show them the different programs and the different platforms that we have. And we're also, Mark Beauchamp, who's the founder of Coach Financing, he has invested in a sister company where we're actually developing our own platform. And we have the ability to integrate all the different back-end lenders that we have and the different programs. So it's basically a one-stop shop. So part of the program is you will get a landing page and a borrowing link. So you can send that out to your customers or place it on your website or in this particular webinar. And then you can go through and seamlessly send it to the customer, and they can do their application over the phone or on their computer or on their tablet. And we're just constantly trying to upgrade that technology. We're always looking for new lenders. I spoke to another one this morning that I'm looking at doing a program for. And that's the thing where we try and add as much value to the market as possible and constantly innovate our business. But it's really about getting people to at least have a conversation with us. We can show them what we do and how we do it, and then it's their buying decision from there.
Yeah, so showing, not just telling, is important in marketing, and also giving the clients a good experience and focusing always on how can we make the experience better so that people stay, so that people want to join. And also, one question I would have about the interest rates you mentioned, what is kind of your thoughts? I have no idea if you're even the right person to ask about this, but what are your thoughts on where we're going with the economy and interest rates and all that kind of stuff?
That's a tough question because, and I'll put the disclaimer in that this is my personal opinion. This is not Coach Financing's opinion, but I do follow, obviously what's going on in the business world. And it's been a really interesting market at the moment because interest rates have been rising. And the reason why central banks, and they do it all over the world, are trying to raise interest rate is they're trying to increase unemployment. But we are very much bucking the trend at this stage. And the government is always adding new jobs in different sectors. And that's made it hard for the Fed to stop raising the interest rates. But the good news is the reason why they wanted to raise the interest rate is obviously to curb inflation. And inflation has come down. And there's lots of different theories and reasons why inflation went sort of rampant after COVID as it was. But a lot of the commentary around now that I'm seeing is it's going to be a softer landing. We're not looking at any sort of periods of negative growth. Everyone wants interest rates to come back down, so financing is cheaper. Maybe not the pensioners because they're probably getting a good return on their money at this stage, and that's always that delicate balance. So we may see one or two more rises over the year, but I would say we're not going to hit a recession. We're going to have a pretty soft landing unless something really drastic happens. And we all know, in this environment, like we're seeing record temperatures, we're seeing like COVID hit us, no one was expecting that. We do have the war in Ukraine and everything that affects different things. But at this stage, the government, many governments are doing a pretty good job at, working with what they've got and managing the economy the way it should be.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that what I've noticed, I talk to a lot of business owners, and a lot of business owners I've been talking to are staying stable. Not necessarily growing perhaps this year or shrinking as much. I've heard a little bit of both, but I think it's just a time where people maybe are being more conscious about where their money's going and thinking twice about it. It's not that they're completely, at least what I've found is it's not that they've stopped buying. It's just that they're being a little more cautious about what they choose to spend their money on. So where can everybody connect with you, find you, all that good stuff?
So go to our website, coachfinancing.com, and there's lots of resources on there, but there's also a link in order to schedule a demo. But better still, what I would ascertain is actually you using your link, because you are a partner of ours and we want you to get the credit for introducing us our customers. So if you actually put your link that we've sent you on your website, that would be the best way to get into the coaching program. And then that way we know where the referrals come from, and then we can look after them. We look after everyone the same, but we might just give that little bit of extra special attention to the Hailey Rowe customers because you're so fantastic.
They are fantastic. And we will put that in the notes at HaileyRowe.com. And thank you again for coming. I really appreciate the education that you've shared today.
Sure. Thank you. Anytime.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.